Thank you. We just concluded our supper break. Before we move on, yesterday I reminded members that we're going to do 10 minutes per item on per page activity, and I want to continue to do that. And so members that haven't spoken, I have a list here. So right now on page 41 to 43, for members that haven't spoken, is there any question? I'm going to go to the member from Mackenzie-Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question or my concern is in regards to everybody knows that there's a big shortage of early childhood care in the smaller communities and even in the regional centers and even in Yellowknife. So we have a lot of young mothers or parents that want to go to school or go to work, but due to the lack of early childhood facilities, they are reluctant to go leave their families with leave their kids with babysitters or other caretakers. My question is just one question here is in regards to is there funding available for renovating homes or upgrading homes to fit the criteria of having your home as a facility to house children? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it would depend on the extent of renovations and what was required, but there are funding arrangements that the department does have to help people set up their family-run day home out of their houses, and so it would be on a case-by-case basis as to what exactly a resident might be looking for to help with that. And so if there is somebody within the members' communities that would be interested in that, I know that the ELCC coordinator would love the opportunity to be able to hear from that person and work directly with them. That way they could understand where the person is living and what they're looking for, and educate them about the different funding programs that are available and how we can work together.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from the Mackenzie-Delta.
Mr. Chair, I just had that one question now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to continue on now. If no further questions, please turn to page 40, Education, Culture and Employment Early Learning Operation Expenditure Summary, 2024-2025 main estimates, $25,396,000. Does the committee agree? Okay, thank you. Questions? I got a member from Nunavut-Boot-Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that this committee defer further consideration of activity early learning in the main estimates for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. These good first. Thank you to the member from Nunavut-Boot-Lake. Does the committee agree? Thank you. Moving on to education, beginning on page 44 with information item on page 46 to 48. Are there any questions? Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to refer to business plan, page 11. Just give Minister and her staff a second to find that. In particular, the item that speaks to continuing implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. So I note that that call to action, particularly action number 7, speaks to closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous education outcomes in the country. And that one is directed at the federal government. But of course, there was an audit done by the Auditor General recently of this system, came forward with a bunch of recommendations, and resulted in the Improving Student Outcomes Action Plan. There's a couple of items in that action plan that are listed in the tracker on the department's website. JK to 4 literacy and numeracy strategy, and developing greater integration of services for children and youth in the education system through expanding regional capacity. I'm just wondering if the minister can speak to those items first, and then I have a question about the goal in the business plan itself. So just first, the 2 items that are on hold.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would like the opportunity to pass to the Assistant Deputy Minister, Shannon Barnett Aikman.
Thank you. I want to go to the Assistant Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first action on hold is the JK to 4 literacy and numeracy strategy, and that action was placed on hold in acknowledgement that we are in the process of moving to the BC adapted curriculum for the N.W.T, which along with that comes not just a change to the curriculum through grades JK to 9, but in each of those subject areas a different way of approaching teaching and learning for the way that numeracy and literacy are accounted for within all of the curriculum content areas. So recognizing that when this action plan was developed, we did not have a line of sight on the new curriculum partner and how that would change. At the time there was this action addressed. The decision to move that on hold was to better implement the switch from the Alberta curriculum to the BC curriculum, and then reassess where we're at in terms of needing to support literacy and numeracy, whether it be through a formal strategy or through an increased focus on the way we promote teaching and learning in those areas in the schools. The second action on hold is around moving to integrated service delivery. When that action was put into place through the Improving Student Outcomes, we had a direct connection through the JK to 12 student support and wellness aspect of inclusive schooling. Since then, the integrated services delivery model has pivoted somewhat government-wide and now lives within, more directly connected to the anti-poverty work. And so the focus in that area has shifted. However, we do still continue to support an integrated approach to accessing things like rehab services and other types of inclusive schooling supports in the JK to 12 system. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to go back to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate those answers. And now kind of to the business plan itself, looking at that business plan, and it was just the continuing implementation of Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. It just highlighted for me to kind of have a look at those calls, and that number 7 stood out to me, particularly considering the Auditor General's report that the department is responding to. So I guess my question is on the business plan, I don't see any commitments or targets being sought to reduce the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth. I'm not seeing targets related to kind of increasing education outcomes for youth. There's certainly some targets related to early childhood education, but they're kind of about early childhood educators. So I'm just wondering if the department can speak a bit more to why we don't see targets in the business plan related to the outcomes that we're trying to seek for junior K to 12 students.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think it's important to note that not everything that the government does lands in the business plans. There are still action plans, there are still day-to-day efforts that are done by public servants and by Northerners day in, day out that don't land themselves in the business plans per se. But educating children and making sure that we're preparing them for the rest of their lives is something that is constantly top of mind for Northern educators, for parents, for community members, and something that we need to continue to do. So while these outcomes are not specifically in the business plan, it absolutely does not mean that it is something that falls off or is something that does not exist. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep, I think that I'll just make the comment that I think it would be nice to see the department speaking to outcomes they're looking to reach in the business plan, just because this one I believe is quite an important item, and I think it's something that has been, recently audited in the department. There was definitely some gaps found, and so I think it's something that should be top of mind for the department in terms of the plans that they're making and the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So I'll leave that as a comment. For future updates to the business plan, I would encourage the department to kind of just have a second look at that. Mr. Chair, I'm going to just pivot to post-secondary education a little bit. And, I have made lots of comments. A number of members have made comments on the Aurora College transition. I just note that when we're speaking to the budget line item, there is a reduction here. I'm wondering if the minister or staff can speak to that reduction, what specifically is being taken away, what service is being reduced there, and how does that reduction impact our implementation and achievement of transition of Aurora College to a polytechnic?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister to the question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, this section actually goes between two different assistant deputy ministers in the way that it is in the main estimates, just so that everybody knows. The assistant deputy minister that is responsible for post-secondary is hiding in the little room. So just so that I just wanted to be transparent, and that I might have to phone a friend who is in a back room. But for this one here, for the reduction to Aurora College, what was done in our restoring balance exercise as the N.W.T was we were instructed to go back and work with our departments as well as our agencies and arm's length organizations. And so for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment, that of course included Aurora College. And so what was done there was we went back to Aurora College, we went back to education bodies as well, and asked them what they were prepared to let go of as far as funding. And so that dollar amount that came from Aurora College was 100% driven by them and them alone. And I didn't tweak it in any way, shape, or form. I respected their operational independence in that respect. So what Aurora College did was they were able to review position vacancies, retirements, and positions that won't impact programs, and that largely was what drove their reductions from their budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move it to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do note that I actually have notes for myself on Aurora College on the next page. It can be, when we're going night after night here, it can be hard to keep track of all our notes, but the line item is here also, so seems like a fair place to also ask the question. Just to be clear here, the minister suggested that Aurora College had almost $2 million in reductions simply with vacant positions that weren't filled. Is that correct, or is there maybe a bit more to that story?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, that's not 100% of the story. That is definitely the primary driver for their reductions, but it is not 100%. But I can definitely say that their selection of what dollars that they were not going to use and suggest for this exercise were intentionally not tied to transformation. But for additional detail, I would like the opportunity to invite another Assistant Deputy Minister to join me at the table.
Yeah, proceed. Thank you. I want to go to the Assistant ADM.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, to my right, I have Mr. Mike Saturnino, who is Assistant Deputy Minister for Education, Culture and Employment as well. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as the Minister mentioned, when we sent this to Aurora College, they intentionally looked at what it was that they could look at that wouldn't impact programs, wouldn't impact the core services that they offer. And so they did look at vacancies, they looked at upcoming retirements, they looked at term positions, and also positions that were within the organization that were perhaps more corporate in function and less around academics, and that's where these reductions were primarily driven from. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on now to the member from Nunavik-Boot Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. First one, I'll talk about the Northern Distance Learning, and I know it's an $850K decrease to that. That is a program that I know was piloted and out of Inuvik for students in remote communities to be able to access the academic programs they needed through online services. Can the Minister speak as to what that reduction of $850K is a reflection of? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in reflection of the fact that a lot of students use Northern Distance Learning and its importance to their education, it was ensured that any reductions to this program would not prevent students from accessing the program. And so the cuts are primarily to use more virtual meetings, so instructors and such that at one point would travel, or students who would travel, that has been turned into more virtual settings. And then there's also some changes to technology uses on the back end. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the member from Nunavik-Boot Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister Cleveland. So just then to confirm, the reduction of $850K is not a reduction to the program itself or the services that it offers. It's still going to maintain at the same levels it was maintaining when we spent $850,000 more last year.
Thank you to the Minister. To the question.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Students who currently access Northern Distance Learning will still be able to access Northern Distance Learning. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Nunavik-Boot Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My other question, since you have Mr. Saturnino with you, is on the college. So I've spoken previously about the Center for Learning, Teaching and Innovation and how important that is for the college to get their accreditation to be able to develop the programming they need to become a polytechnique. I guess my first question is, was the Minister and your department aware that this program was actually running and that the funding from Canor was sunsetting after 3 years? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yes, the department was aware that this program was operating and was also aware that the program was a funded program through Canor, and that it did have a sunsetting time period. Any desire to have ECE support renegotiating that was not reached out to the department for, but I'd like to also pass to Mr. Saturnino, as I think that the member is eager to hear from him as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the Assistant ADM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so the department was aware. This was an initiative that was introduced when the president role was being shared with the Associate Deputy Minister of Post-Secondary Education Renewal. And so, of course, there was a higher level of, a good level of communication happening across the department. We were aware of this initiative and what it was for, which was to build capacity within the college to support staff, and so that was the what it was intended for when it was introduced initially in 2020. And so we were given notice that the program was ending, and of course, you know, we're in discussions with the college as it was closing, but as the minister noted, there was no request to continue with it. I'm aware that they did approach Candor and sought to get additional funds, but their request was not supported. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Nunavut Lake.
It's surprising because when the president of Aurora College sat in front of committee, that certainly was made very clear to us that if there's one thing that they could get to continue would be that $500K funding to ensure that that program continued on. So I'm a little surprised that it wasn't brought forward to the department as well. The department obviously is aware that they do require that funding for that training, that particular program, to ensure that they can qualify, the programs to qualify the assurance requirements become a polytechnique. So has the department had any conversations with Aurora College around that? Around, again, as part of the polytechnique transformation process, the importance of having that program continue?
Yes, I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I received a letter from Aurora College Chair on Thursday indicating that they are requesting funding to reinstate that entity. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Nunavut Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to know that the chair of the board has been listening to session the last couple of weeks. So obviously, it feels there may be an opportunity. Yeah, no, that's it for me on that. I think, Mr. Chair, certainly appreciate it, and yeah, we look forward. I mean, again, that funding I think is crucial, and I hope the department is considering looking at that program and maintaining that program. So again, we can continue down the path of getting to a polytechnique where we need to be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any more questions for information item on pages 46 to 48? Yes, I got a member from from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate the questions and comments by my colleagues on post-secondary education. So I will pick up the baton here and focus on JK to 12 education. So we see some significant reductions in JK to 12 education system services and student services. System services is reduced by about 25%. Actually, both are in student services. And then we see reductions in contributions to education authorities. So my question is, how will this affect students on the ground at the end of the day? And just to back up for a sec, I just want to point out, so earlier there was comments that because there was a focus on just reducing positions that were vacant or retirements, that wouldn't impact programs. And so I don't think we can make an assumption that because someone's retiring and we're not replacing them, that doesn't impact a program. It doesn't affect a staff person in that we don't have to fire someone, for lack of a better term, but it will impact the program in that if we're letting someone retire and no one's replacing them, that by definition impacts something. So I just want us to be clear that just because we're not creating affected employees, that's not the same as not impacting programs. Anyway, but the question at hand here is about impacts to JK to 12 education in terms of those significant reductions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to start off by just pointing out that the two are kind of apples and oranges, because one is talking about JK to 12 education, the other is talking about Aurora College, and they're very separate. In regards to the member's question about the reduction for our territorial schools and administration, that number is enrollment driven. And so while I did, as minister, use that number to bring to my colleagues, within this fiscal sustainability exercise, that is a number that goes up and down year after year, and because it is based entirely on enrollment. And so that is where that number came from. It was not anything different or outside of the traditional school funding formula. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, so my comment on the issue of whether retirements would impact programs, that was just sort of globally in general whenever we talk about retirements and vacancies. Anyway, so is the minister suggesting that enrollment has gone down by 25% from last year to this year? I mean, it's also significantly lower than the previous year. Is that what we're talking about, that student enrollment has gone down 25% in the past year?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, no, I'm looking at the actuals from 2022-23 of $139 million to the main estimates of 2024-25, which are $136 million, $136.6 million. So not a 25% reduction in attendance. I'm talking about that particular line item. If the member would like me to give her information on additional line items, I'd be happy.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Yellowknife North.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. The line items that I wanted to focus on at the moment are under junior kindergarten to grade 12 education system services. The first one, which goes from 8.1 million to just over 6 million from last year to this year's main estimates. And maybe you can explain the difference to me, but further down in the list, there's JK to grade 12 student services, which goes from 6.1 million to 4.6 million this year. Can the minister explain how that will impact services, or whether that's primarily due to a drastic decrease in student enrollment?
Thank you. To the minister to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, in that top line item there of the $8.2 million to the $6 million, that line item reduction is due to some fiscal sustainability reductions. So, for starters, there is a sunset of education renewal and innovation funding, but from our fiscal sustainability plan, there's also a switch to virtual meetings related to committee meetings and a reduction of the number of training sessions as well by our student support and wellness programs. There's also a true-up of mentorship allowances and substitute wages to support the budgets under the school funding framework as well. And there is a discontinuation of an education operations coordinator, which is a headquarters position, a discontinuation of an Indigenous language and culture coordinator position, as well as a discontinuation of a junior kindergarten to grade 6 curriculum coordinator. We were also able in this line item here to reduce the number and frequency of training for Northern teachers. So previously, their principals did an annual in-service, and so what we have looked at doing is actually combining that with a summit at a conference in order to save some dollars there and bring that together with some other PD that happens. We've also reduced the number and frequency of training for, I'm repeating myself. We've also discontinued, for example, our switch to virtual meetings with education authorities in order to save some additional funding. And then that, of course, is offset by some federal dollars we received for the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so were these reductions done in consultation with education authorities or based on recommendations from those education authorities? Or I understand some of these are with, solely within ECE, but there may be impacts on education authorities and the work that they do. So can the minister speak to any consultation that was done there or recommendations from the authorities?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the department did put out a call to education bodies as a whole to ask them, what would work? Do you foresee a possibility to offer up some dollars from your budgets? And without any surprise, of course, the answer was no, which we 100% respected, because like many members have said, our foundation our economic foundation begins with educating our youth, and so we absolutely respected that. But what the education bodies did offer up were some suggestions of where to create some savings within the department. And so those recommendations were absolutely listened to, and some of those recommendations as well included switching to virtual training sessions or meetings, because sometimes when we're taking teachers out of especially small communities, it can be incredibly disruptive to the learning of students. And so some of those suggestions were definitely incorporated within this budget here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, well, that is somewhat reassuring to hear. The question, so on page 46, we look at the budgets for building skills for success in the N.W.T, and that has gone from $3.368 million last year to, it looks like, nothing this year. And so can the minister explain whether that funding appears somewhere else in the budget? Is it a shifting around of where funds are coming from or going, or what programs are we losing if that program disappears?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, that was a sunset of a federal program that was not reinstated, and there was a significant impact to labour market programs across Canada, and one that we have heard a lot about from provincial and territorial labour ministers across the country, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so my understanding is that we have an action plan, the Skills for Success action plan, that is supposed to go from 2021 to 2025. So are we able to continue on with that action plan and accomplishing the goals that we've set for ourselves without any funding in that line item this year? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would like to just say for the record that we called our program Skills for Success first before the feds. And unfortunately, the two are not related. They just share a name. So when the federal government came out with their funding program, it had the same name as our existing strategy. So the two are not related. Our strategy still exists, but that federal funding has sunset. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list, I have the member from Monfrey for pages 46 to 48. Questions?
Thank you. My question was regarding what MLA Morgan was referring to, Education Authority contributions. And it says that, money is allocated based on previous school year. So it is based on enrollment formula. So I just wanted to ask the minister if there's a breakdown of regions, which region is most impacted, that, there is a decrease in this budget. So, just which region is most impacted?
Thank you to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just to be clear, we did not decrease our contributions or change the funding formula. The funding formula is enrollment based, so it would be based on the number of students attending a school, based on the numbers provided by that particular education body and particular school. And as far as, if the member is asking how enrollment numbers changed year after year for schools in her region, I'd be happy to access that information, but it's not information that I have at my fingertips right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to the member from Monfouy.
Thank you. Well, it's not huge, but it's just that it would be nice to know the numbers because, and you did state that before that due to enrollment and the contribution went down. So I just that's why I asked is that which region is most impacted, and with us, we're not part of North Slave, so with Cleacho Regions, I would like to know for that very reason. And I know that last year, and this is regarding the post-secondary. I know last year, because of the Aurora College transformation, so teacher education program and social work program they don't offer that program anymore. But I believe previous minister did say before that it was going to be up and running maybe this school year or next school year. Because I thought he said 24, 25 that they're gonna start accepting students. So I just want to know if and when the Aurora College is going to start accepting students for teacher education program and social work, because those two are very important. And I know that we do have problems with retaining, and those were a success for many of the small communities, students coming from small communities, and they were using that program more, and we did have a lot of graduates. And a lot of them went on to obtain their master's and PhD. So I just want to know when the Aurora College is going to start accepting students with, for teacher education and social work program. Thank you.
To the minister, to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just to go back really quickly, I do have the number for the member in terms of the change in enrollment for Cleacho Region, and it's 4%, so a decline of 4% for Cleacho Region schools. And then in regards to the degree programs from Aurora College has spoken about having their first degree program be general studies, and they pushed that back by a year. Originally, they had intended that would start this fall, and so that would mean that it would start next fall. Beyond that, I do not have that information as of yet from the Board of Governors of Aurora College.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Monfouy.
It's good. Thank you. Thank you for the information, which I'm sure there's people listening, and our leaders are listening too as well. So it's good to know that number. And so minority language education as second language, well, that's for French. But I know it was in the budget that Aurora College was going to be off, or it was part of their budget where they were going to deliver a diploma program for language. Why that program never went further, or like it was never, department never did anything about it, knowing the importance of the indigenous language. And and now that that department is creating ADM for the language and culture. So I want to know why the department never proceed to offer that program. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the department did have money set aside in the budget, anticipating that program would be developed and come forward, and had hoped it would come forward sooner. And so it has been part of ECE's budget for a number of years, and money that they have received approved by this Legislative Assembly for that purpose. Given that the program is not yet in existence, that was identified as potential cost savings to the department and dollars that could be directed elsewhere, so that we're ensuring that we're directing it to where it can best be used. And then once that a program does come forward, then I would be able to go to FMB again with a submission, a costed submission, and timeline for that delivery. So it's not the Department of Education that would develop that program and that curriculum for Aurora College. It's Aurora College that is doing that work. I think it is worth also mentioning programs that are within the Department of Education, like the Mentorship Apprenticeship Program, the scholarship programs as well, that have really taken off over the last number of years and have seen record enrollment. And so just a huge thank you to our MAP coordinators and also our mentors who are doing that good work. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Montfouille.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. The treaty simulations, it's a one-time funding for a treaty simulation project. Can you elaborate more on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would have to phone a friend for that one, but I believe it is worked into federal and N.W.T agreements with Indigenous governments. But may I please pass to the Deputy Minister?
Thank you. I'm going to go to the Deputy Minister.
Apologies, I think I will have to also access Assistant Deputy Minister Shannon Barnett-Aikman with the will of the committee.
Can we bring?
Yes, he could bring her in, the ADM.
Mr. Speaker, if possible, can I commit to getting that back to the committee? Thank you.
Yes. Okay, well, we'll continue on. I'm going to go back to the member from Montfouille.
Yeah. I'm done with this part.
Thank you. Next on my list, I got the member from Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I too would like to raise the minority language education and secondary language instruction, in particular, or the French funding, which is decreasing by, I believe my calculations around just shy of $1.5 million, and I understand that's a sunsetting from the French language cooperative agreement. The Northwest Territories has a great reputation and success rate for producing bilingual students through its JK to 12 system. Sorry, I'm getting all my numbers lined up, or my letters and numbers lined up. And this is great. I worked with Canadian Parents for French. I still do. Minority language education, in particular French language education, is an important part of the Canadian identity, and it's great to see our government supporting this. But there's a huge need for bilingual teachers in Canada, and if we're going to be successful in attracting and retaining them, we need to ensure that we have robust financial resources supporting our school divisions to ensure they can attract and retain the talent. We need to continue these very successful rates of graduation of bilingual diplomas. So what are we doing to offset the loss in funding from the sunsetting agreement? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I absolutely agree with the member. I know that we are both products of being able to be in French language schools in this territory, and are able now to pass that on to our own children, which is definitely a privilege, and one that I would like for Northerners to be able to continue. So within that funding, the member is right. There's a sunset of funding related to the Canada N.W.T cooperation agreement on minority language education and second official language instruction, and the member was totally in tune with his math as well. $1.4 $5.3 million is that sunset, and that was sunset of funding to College Nordique. We are in the process in the department of renegotiating our federal funding agreements for all of our language agreements, and that minority language education is included in that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is that anticipated to be restored to the level of support it's previously enjoyed? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass to the Deputy Minister to be able to speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the Deputy Minister.
Mr. Chair, of course, that is our fervent desire, but in negotiations, one can never be certain of the outcome. We're hoping for a positive outcome and anticipating that could occur by as early as summer of this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
Awesome, Mr. Chair. That's great news. I wish you the best of luck, and if you need any letters written, I can certainly help out. And I just want to point out with this as well, often when there is an announcement around minority language funding for French language education in the Northwest Territories or other programming, there seems to be a tug of war between Indigenous language funding and a sense that Indigenous languages are being left out of that, but these are completely separate programs and separate funding streams. And I think it's really important we support all of our official languages to the best of our ability. And if there's cash out there, we should be trying to get it and invest in all of our languages. There just happens to be a lot of federal support for French language funding, and I think what all minority language groups have in common is that they are minority language groups, and they can find ways to support each other, especially if they're properly funded. So I really do support minority language education, and I hope we continue to see success in this area of education. I have other members have already spoken about other concerns I have around education. The one thing I will add is, can the minister just update this House on how the STIP day or the STIP program is working? I know as a parent with children in various grades that the increasing number of days off on the calendar often create a lot of strain and on just the availability of time for parents to manage their schedule. So it seems like these calendar days continue to increase. I know that this was a way to offset costs and continue to support teachers so there's fewer burnouts, and we continue to make the North a good place for teachers to work. And I know we continue to pay them, I think, the highest in Canada, which is all very good. But I know parents I talk to, and one of those parents is my wife, can often be frustrated when there's another week where, we missed it, something wasn't communicated, and now we have to make arrangements that we didn't anticipate. So how is that program going? Do we have enough instructional hours? What's the feedback been like so far? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, absolutely, I hear the member that, understanding where your children are when you're at work and that they're cared for and managing that is incredibly important. We just talked about childcare for sure, and so I hear the member on that one. Mr. Chair, right now, in the previous assembly, it was expected that there would be a statutory review of the STIP days. That evaluation was deferred indefinitely at that time. It was originally deferred because of COVID. There just wasn't the amount of hours required in order to review that. And then beyond that, there just hadn't really been what was considered kind of a normal school year. I would say as far as how it's going, it really depends on who you talk to. So if you talk to the teachers, they definitely appreciate the added time in order to serve the purpose of providing them with day-to-day time in order to do things like report cards. If you talk to parents, of course, it is definitely more of a challenge. How education bodies have decided to manage that time has definitely been up to each of them. For example, there's an education body here in Yellowknife who has chosen to attach that to Thursday afternoons in order for parents to have that consistency of time. It has also meant that that particular education body has stepped away from PD days and been able to use those Thursday afternoons for that purpose. And I know that there are other school boards who have done the same. And so it really depends on who you talk to. And as we know, with limited options for childcare, it does become a challenge for parents for sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that response. Are we going to undertake that review? I understand it's been deferred indefinitely, but now that we're not in emergency circumstances and we do have time, is this an area the minister thinks worthwhile to reevaluate? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, STIP feedback still comes forward ad hoc through different evaluation parameters from education bodies and from open communication with education bodies. And then beyond that, calendars are still developed to meet legislative requirements, for example, for instructional hours. And then, of course, we have the collective agreement parameters for number of teacher work days and stuff like that. And for but yes, sorry, I've been passed a note. Yes, we can consider doing that as well, but I'd be curious to know, I feel like the member has another ask, and so I'll pass back to him because I'm curious as to where he will go with that.
Thank you. I'll go to the Deputy Minister.
I was passing back to the member, sorry.
The member from Range Lake.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just do it. I was one of the MLAs who passed the statutory review, so I think it's important to do it. I think one thing we learned from COVID is when kids are out of class, education results suffer. All the evidence, all the science is showing us that if I could have like 10 more seconds just to conclude my thought, but like that is where the science is showing us that when you pull kids out of the classroom, academics suffer, and they still have not recovered from all that time that was lost during the pandemic. So I'm extremely skeptic that more time out of classroom is going to be useful. So I would strongly encourage the statutory review to come back and for it to be implemented within the life of this government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on items pages 46 to 48? Any members? Okay, I don't see no further questions. Please turn to page 45. Education, culture and employment, education operation expenditure summary. 2024-2025 main estimates, $236,524,000. Does the committee agree? Okay, I'm going to go to the member from N.W.T. Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that this committee defer further consideration of the activity education in the main estimates for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The motion is in order. To the motion. Question has been called. All those in favor, show of hands. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion is carried. Consideration of the Department of Education, Culture and Employment Operation Expenditure 2024-2025 main estimates. Education is deferred. We will now move on to the next key activity. Thank you. Moving on to income security, beginning on page 49 with information items on page 51 and 52. Are there any questions? No further questions. We're moving on to security, beginning on page 49 with information items on page 51, 52. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Grace Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as my colleague from Montfouille has spoken to very passionately in this House on many a time, there is a concern, I think, around the lack of funding for the senior home heating subsidy. So especially for elders who are on limited incomes. And I can see that in the main estimates from 23-24 and the revised estimates, there's a difference of approximately $500 and change $1,000. And now the main estimates for 24-25 have gone back down. Does the minister wish to speak to whether she thinks that's adequate? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, for the last 2 years, well, probably longer than that, the department has watched this closely to make sure that they are doing anything that they can within their wheelhouse to ensure that seniors are receiving up to 80% of their fuel covered, seniors who qualify and who need that support. It is definitely a well-used subsidy within the Northwest Territories and one that a lot of seniors and elders are reliant on. So for the last 2 years, because of the increasing cost of fuel, the department has been able to issue one-time top-ups to seniors for this fund, and so continuing to watch fuel costs and uptake of the program is something that the department will continue to do and then reevaluate as and when needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Grace Slave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And similarly to the income assistance line in the program detail, it has been historically lower not that long ago by, gosh, I'm going to say, math on the fly is not my forte, Mr. Speaker, but the difference between the main estimates of this fiscal is 43, almost 44 million, and in 2022-23 the actuals were close to 36 million. So I guess obviously that's just a tiny snapshot, but if the minister could speak to where she sees income assistance trending over time as well, that would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, one of the things that is important to know in these two main estimates for 23-24 as well as 24-25 is they both have the funding for the new income assistance program included in them, but because we weren't able to launch that program, the actuals were far less because we weren't able to get those dollars out the door with the new program. I think it's also worth knowing as well that we still have not returned to our pre-pandemic levels for income assistance uptake as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Grace Slave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify then, can the minister explain if she expects to need more than what is currently funded? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The department has asked for in this budget what they feel they will need, and also I hope that with the increased ability for residents to keep some of their earned income and work with client navigators as well as career development officers, that hopefully we will be able to support residents to create pathways to employment, entrepreneurship, as well as education by combining our business plans with the dollars that we do have available. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the member from Grace Slave.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I wonder if the Minister of EC could have a conversation with the Minister of ITI around employment opportunities in our smaller communities and what we're going to be really pushing on in these 3.5 years we have left to make sure there are good options for people across our territory. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment. Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Monfouille.
I see here senior home in this activities. Okay. No, it's not that. It's income support assistance program. Okay, there's minuses $187,000. But I see increase of that 187 in senior citizen supplementary benefit. Is that a transfer from that program to senior citizens supplementary benefit? And
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it's not a trade from one to the other. What is happening under the senior citizen supplementary benefit is we have more seniors in the territory, so we needed to increase that budget in order to account for the expected growth of that program that matches our population growth in that age bracket. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Monfouille.
well, senior citizen supplementary benefits. It's not huge, but can the minister explain more of what that program does?
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it is a supplement for people. Once you reach a certain age, you get a small amount of money that is provided to you. And for further detail than that, I'd like to pass to Mr. Saturnino. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the ADM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the minister mentioned, this is an additional benefit provided to seniors. It is based on eligibility for the guaranteed income supplement. And so it is actually a benefit that is legislated, and it is administered by the federal government. So these benefits are paid out on the same check as old age security and guaranteed income supplement. So it basically works out to an extra $196 per month. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Monfouille.
Thank you for that information. Okay, senior home heating subsidy. Okay, 23-24 was 2.7 million, and it went down for this current fiscal year to 2.1. And I just want to make sure I'm on the right line here. I know this is a very important program, especially for our elders living in a small communities, because I think you go by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Okay, there are some of my a couple of my communities are on tier 3, and they have said that the amount that's allocated, sorry about this, the amount that's allocated, it's not enough to make ends meet. It's not enough for them to heat their house. So if my constituents are saying that lives in a tundra, so what about the other communities that are living further with the high price of fuel? So it must be, this must have a great impact on them as well, especially the elders who, needs these subsidies. Why did the department, I just want to ask that department, why a decrease with that program when it's greatly needed to accommodate our senior citizens who, there's quite a few of them, and we keep talking about elders aging in home or seniors aging in home with dignity, and this is not enough, to help our seniors. And there are lots I know that do not want to go to regional center because a lot of them are still independent. They can do things, but they don't want to go to a senior home because they're still capable. They're mobile. Because for us, for a lot of them, that's a last stop, and that's what they don't want to go there. Not now, not yet. So why there's a big decrease in budget for that? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm very happy that members have been so vocal in the House about the use of this program and how successful or how reliant, I should say, seniors and elders are. I think it's really important that everybody have the opportunity to hear what is working for residents and what is not. And so I'm very thankful to members that they've shared that this is definitely something that is needed. The reason that you see the difference of just over $500,000 between the revised estimates for 23-24 and the main estimates for 24-25 is that due to the increased cost of fuel, and in recognition of that, the department was able to go and do its best to find that additional funding and work it into that budget in order to ensure that they were doing what they can to make sure that roughly around 80% of the fuel costs of seniors and elders in the territory were covered. The reason that the actuals for 22-23 are also higher than the annual budget of 2.192 is because that same type of work was done in the previous year. So education has really worked hard to make sure that additional dollars are found because they acknowledge how important that program is for seniors in the territory. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Montfouille.
Thank you. This heating fuel subsidy, and if you go to small communities, especially in December and January, the coldest month of the year, a lot of these elders, they have wood stove. So they are eligible for either wood or heating fuel. And a lot of them are going for the fuel because it is expensive to maintain, or they are expensive to get, especially in the small communities. There's also for wood too as well, but a lot of them, they said they would rather go get the fuel. But and I know some of them were asking, why not? Why have they like the options, but they would like it if they could be accommodated, especially in small communities with elders that would like to use the wood, but they don't have anybody there to help and provide. So why not have two, like the senior home heating subsidy, there be one for wood as well, so they'll be eligible for both in small communities. Not just only that, but here in Yellowknife as well, and I'm sure there are some elders, some senior citizens who have used wood for heating purpose. So it would be nice if there could be for burning for wood to heat your house, that instead of, because it's not enough. It's not enough in most of the program, because sometimes in the small communities, it's hard to get wood, like for others to do it, and and it's based on contract too, so it's not reliable. So a lot of them, they go for the heating fuel, but it's not enough. It doesn't fill their fuel tank. So that's what they were saying. Why not have wood to be eligible for wood as well, instead of just having an option of choosing one over the other. Thank you.
Okay, so I take that as just a comment. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to the minister.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that residents know that they can either choose one or the other or both, and that they can work with their client navigator on that one. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Minister. Any more questions on page 51 to page 52 information item? If not, I want to continue on. To no further questions. Please turn to page 50. Education, culture, and employment income security operational expenditure summary 2024-2025 main estimates $66,360,000. Does the committee agree? Thank you. Move it on to the labor development and standards on page 53 with information items on page 55 to 57. Are there any questions? I'm going to go to the member from Grizzly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, excuse me for one quick second here as I find the pages on the business plan I'd like to refer to quickly. In the business plan on page 15, the department speaks to supporting pathways to employment for N.W.T youth through SNAP, and specifically talks about measures of number of high school students participating in SNAP program as students. I don't have any particular issue with that, but what I would like the minister to speak to is if her department has thought about other pathways to career education within the JK to 8 segment. I heard a lot from folks on the campaign trail that that's what they would like to see, specifically the construction industry. So I wonder what the minister is contemplating on that front. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in addition to, students who want to go through like the SNAP program, there's also the career education advisors. But can I just confirm the member was talking about what's being done for JK to grade 8? Thank you. Oh, yes, I'm getting a thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the new curriculum that is being implemented in the Northwest Territories would have more practical courses that could relate to employment readiness. And the other thing that I think is really valuable within the new curriculum is that it's a lot more project-based. And so there's a lot more onus on the student and excitement on the part of the student to be able to do a lot more hands-on learning and a lot more creative learning, whether or not they're learning math, science, social studies, or the rest of it. And so I think that the new curriculum really speaks well to empowering our youth to roll their sleeves up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Great Slave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, the Minister, for that. I would really encourage her staff to reach out to various trade associations and see how the connections could be made through the new curriculum. Moving on to the NTNP, I noticed that you have some actions and measures under the business plan on page 17, namely approving accessibility to the program streams, continuing to promote immigration to the N.W.T through the program, and on the following page, on page 19, pardon me, increasing the number of health and social services positions supported by the NTNP. And I know the minister knows where I'm going with this because I'm constantly talking to her about it. I seem to be the MLA for foreign nationals who have health backgrounds. So could the minister tell me more about how she plans to promote or explain the program and access points that best serve folks who are already in the N.W.T. I know she knows I'm coming to her pretty much weekly with this, so I would love to hear if there's anything else that I don't know already, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the members' excitement and ensuring that we're continuing to work on this. I think that it'll be an exciting term for creating systems for people wanting to come to Canada and make the Northwest Territories home. There is we have a staff member within Education, Culture and Employment at this time. Moving forward, we will be transitioning a second staff member from ITI over to Education, Culture and Employment, and so being able to really double that team, I think will do a lot of good for ECE and being able to support people within this space. From our allotment from the federal government for people within the nominee program is currently set to 300 people. We have not yet within the territory met that number, but we have big plans within Education, Culture and Employment to ensure that we're doing our part to continue to support Northerners to build a skilled workforce, and that means we need more people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Grace Leaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really just one more question. Can the minister speak to the engagement and promotion and discussions in a general way? I don't want her, speaking to anything confidential, really. It's just, as she noted, I am super keen to see where ECE can go with this, and I'm interested in see where ECE can go with our federal partners on this, and looking at those new pathways. So, is there anything she can speak to on timelines or big dreams she might have, Mr. Chair? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, at this point, these are our early days, but do I have dreams? I most definitely do. And have had the opportunity to travel to our immigration FTP meetings in Montreal just recently with Deputy Minister Fulford, and in those meetings had the opportunity to speak to things like settlement services and credentialing here in the territory, which are things that we hear quite a bit about. And especially credentialing just recently in the House here. So in addition to working with federal counterparts, working with territorial or provincial counterparts outside of the N.W.T, I've had the opportunity to create some relationships with some of my own counterparts in other parts of the country, and how we might be able to support the needs of the territory within their provinces, but I've also had the opportunity to connect with some of my cabinet colleagues as well on some of the needs, because this will definitely pull in a lot of different departments to be able to ensure that we're creating systems that support people to come and make the N.W.T home as part of the nominee program. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further questions from the member from the state? Don't see none. Is there any further members that want to question information item on page 55 to 57? We'll go to the member from the Mackenzie Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Nuvik at the Aurora College facility, they have these trailers, trailers, I think they're called. They've been sitting there for a number of years without moving to any of the communities, outlying communities. I know in my community of Fort McPherson, they've been expressing interest in seeing if these they can bring these trailers to the communities and get some of our local people trained in some trade or another. Do you cover? Is it covered in here on page 55 or 56 somewhere? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the trades trailers are owned by Aurora College, and so would fall under their operations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Mackenzie Delta.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions from members on information item on pages 55 to 57? I'm going to go to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the minister explain why under apprenticeship and occupational certification, there is a decrease from last year's amounts. Is that last year's amounts weren't fully expended, or what's the rationale there? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, that reduction is a decrease due to reductions in the trades and occupation wage subsidy program. And so that would be dollars that are historically unspent that we have removed from the budget. In addition to that, there's also some savings in there from the Apprenticeship, Trade and Occupational Certification Committee pivoting to virtual meetings as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the trades and occupations wage subsidy, I'm reading here, that provides financial assistance to employers to hire Northerners with little or no work experience and support that individual to progress through apprenticeship. If we're not getting this program fully subscribed, it seems like there should be a big need for this kind of thing. Does the minister believe that there is more we can do to, try to recruit employers, try to promote this program more, or are we going about it the wrong way? It seems like this is one of the key goals to achieve our priorities. So does the minister have any insights on, if not this program, what we could do instead to get more people, training and as apprentices to move forward with trades and other occupations? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to start and then I'd like to pass to the Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Saturnino. But for starters, absolutely there's more that can be done as far as employers learning about the wage subsidies. And I think that especially when it comes to achieving our goal of increasing SNAP apprentices across the territory, especially outside of Yellowknife, the more work that can be done in order to find those employers and make sure that they know that they are eligible for wage subsidies. I am a firm believer that us as MLAs have a role to play in communication as well and making sure that we are pointing people in the right direction. But through yourself, Mr. Chair, I would like to pass to Mr. Saturnino.
Thank you. I'd like to go to the ADM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose what I would point to is the Apprenticeship, Trade and Occupational Certification Program has had a strategy in place for 5 years, from 2017 to 2022. The purpose of that strategy was very much to try and grow the program, improve the supports, improve the communications and marketing for the program as well. We've seen some successes from the original strategy and are currently working on an extension for that strategy. And we anticipate that we will have a new action plan that hopefully will be released in the fall. We recently went out for engagement. We work very closely. Apprenticeship is an industry-driven system. Employers are the critical partner, ensuring that they have journey persons. And so if there's an employer out there that is interested and willing to take on apprentices, we are working with them and we're trying to grow the program. And one thing I would note here is this is where a program like the Schools North Apprenticeship Program becomes very critical in trying to get more young people into the trades. And we've seen amazing growth in that program from, one student in 2017 to 40 plus students to the present day. So some significant growth in that program, which gives us positive signs for program growth over time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to the member from Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to seeing the new strategy or the extension and the new action plan and making sure, well, from our side, trying to hold the government to account that we make real progress on this. Thank you.
And thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the minister explain why we are reducing the small community employment support funding? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, $3 million of those dollars were focused on small communities, and $1 million of those dollars were focused on regional centres. And so the change in that reduction would signal a desire to kind of change the policy work behind that funding to ensure that that funding is directed at communities with the highest unemployment rates. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does the minister not think that putting the full amount, the $4 million, into small communities and into those places with the lowest employment rates would be more beneficial than just cutting it out altogether? Thank you.
I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, you know, like I've said before, in my time here today, there would definitely be, I could find many ways to spend money, and my husband always says I'm definitely very skilled at it. But I would need to evaluate that to make sure that at the end of the day, we as a department are getting the biggest return on our investment in ensuring that we are spending money as responsibly as possible in tune with the priorities of this Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that this program is exactly that. It's great return on investment if we get it working correctly. And I know regional centers were added in the past because there were issues getting the money out the door. But I think that that's not a reason to cut it. That's a reason to retool the program so we can get the cash flowing to where it needs to go. So, I mean, since the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight has issued its report where they're calling for this funding to be restored, I have received messages from local administrators and community members in small communities who have supported this move and have said that this is a really important funding. I've spoken to former ministers, former members who remember how when this program came about and how important it was and want to see it reinstated. So, I mean, is there a way to change the minister's thinking on this and to reprioritize employment in small communities and maximize these dollars rather than cutting them away? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, like the rest of my colleagues, I am definitely always willing to have conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I guess we'll continue to have that conversation, but, you know, I think it's important that we develop policy that works for the entire Northwest Territories, and this is a good policy. It's good it's one of those areas that, you know, Yellowknife members don't have to do much to ensure that there's investment in Yellowknife, right? So we have to we as an Assembly have to make sure we're looking at ways to invest outside and make sure we're maximizing economic activity because the default is headquarters, right? And that was the debate yesterday. And I'm not going to reflect on that, but members were here. So, you know, it's just when you have a debate like that and then you see a cut to this, you start to wonder, like, when we're doing reduction exercises, are we looking at taking money where it's most needed in those small communities outside of the centers rather than looking at ways we can reduce our comfort levels in headquarters or other regional centers where they're buttressed by more funding, more resources, and more staff. So I don't support this reduction. I want to see it restored. I don't know if I can support this budget if these cuts to small community support programs continue. There's another fund we'll get to in another department. It's just disappointing to see this when so much work in previous assemblies have gone to developing these programs and delivering these programs. You know, there's been working groups, small community working groups that were kind of given ownership of these funds to make sure they could be directed into their communities. That was in the 18th Assembly, which I was a part of. But I know that wasn't the only one that made these things happen. Mr. Chair, you've spoken about the need for this as well when it comes to your riding. So this is a bit of a speech, but I think it's an important one to hear. You know, and we can all support this regardless of where we represent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that more as a comment, and I'm going to go to the member from Montfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, these are a lot of these programs and services. It's very important for many of the small communities, and I know when a lot of our young people always, when they're talking, when in high school, they always, a lot of them have said, I want to work at the mine, because we know that post-secondary is not for everybody. So a lot of them said, I want to work at the mine, make money, and maybe from there out, they'll get their trades, enter a trades program, or, get an apprenticeship through mining for trades. So a lot of them have said that, and here I see trades and occupations wage subsidy went down. I think my colleague said that went down to $9.22. So it's not a huge, but it's a decrease, to 922,000. Can the minister explain why there's a reduction in that budget for this upcoming fiscal year? Thank you.
Thank you to the minister to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the department was able to look at the last 5 years of that spending line item and able to identify that over the last 5 years, typically $150,000 of that subsidy was not spent. And so I would absolutely love the opportunity to go over budget on that line item this year, and would challenge my colleagues to help me find employers willing to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Montfrey.
I'm sure if you approach Clinton Investment, they will be happy to fill that positions, because we know that trades, we really do need trades, and we emphasize that with our young people that, because many of the tradespeople that we have right now, they're past retirement age, but there's nobody to come after them. So it's like they're still working, and a lot of them are saying that, they want to retire, but there's nobody to take their job. So, and I'm very grateful, thankful for the housing, for having the, the scholarship programs for trades. So I'm just wondering, so 150,000, why not turn that into a trades, a scholarship program to, so that our young people can enter, trades program? I think that's, maybe that's the right way, I don't know, but if you don't know what to do with that, scholarship program, we need more scholarship program for trades program, and housing, has that already, but I think we need to open it up for the Northwest Territories to attract more young people to enter that to trades program. So I'm just wondering, will the minister, do something about that to maybe create more scholarship program? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the member might be happy to know I did just meet yesterday with the CEO of Clecho Investment Corporation. So we have a very close working relationship and are able to work in partnership with one another to find out ways that we can support one another's goals, and we definitely have some shared ones. In addition to comments around scholarships and such, ECE definitely does support the education funding requirements for students that are entering into trades, just like we through a different funding pot, but similar to how we support students who are wanting to go to post-secondary institutions in a Bachelor of Arts or Science program as well. And so that is definitely something that we value and we see as important. With this funding pot here, it is definitely one that is prescribed to wage subsidies, which is a very important requirement of people going through their education programs as well. So for example, while a student who is doing an apprenticeship might be in school 12 weeks or during 12 to 16 weeks out of their years, they do have a requirement to then go back to their employer and complete a certain number of hours after that, or leading up to that as well, depending on. And so this is another way that we can continue to support them as they move through the required hours and years of their apprenticeship. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Montfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I know there are some young people that I know that went to work at the mine and got their journeyman in millwrights and electricians and welding. You know, those are really greatly needed, and it would be nice to see more like in mechanics as well and plumbing, which we're lacking in a lot of small communities. So that is good. It's good that they're meeting with the Indigenous government or organizations. The career development training, and I know that it's not that much, but I just want to know what happened to this department. Did this funding went somewhere, or just this program is no longer needed?
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, can I please pass to the Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Saturnino? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the ADM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The $30,000 career development and training line was essentially a pot of funding that we use for different labor market training projects, but it's not actually tied to any specific organization or project. So we have used it at different times when we've had projects that needed some support, and as a result, it is proposed for reduction simply because it's not actually tied to a specific project or function within this activity. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to the member from Montfrey.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. And Skills Canada. I know that is one of the, a few years ago, but I know due to COVID and a few other emergencies that, happened in the Northwest Territory. So I know that there, I don't know how, I know there was not too many participants in that within the last few years. So Skill Canada, can the minister explain, or is this program still being used, because we haven't heard too much about it for the competition? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Skills, N.W.T. and Skills Canada are still very much a thing in the Northwest Territories. Just this past week, students from the Northwest Territories just returned from the national competition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Montfrey.
Yeah, thank you. That's about it. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for information items on page 55 to 57? Seeing none, I'm going to continue on. No further questions. Please turn to page 54. Education, Culture and Employment, Labor Development and Standards, Operational Expenditure Summary, 2024-2025, main estimate $16,857,000. Does the committee agree? I would like to go to the member from N.W.T.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that this committee defer consideration of the activity Labour Development Standards in the main estimates for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The motion is in order. To the motion. Question has been called. All those in favor, show of hands. Thank you. All those opposed. The motion is carried. Consideration of the Department of Education, Culture and employment operation expenditure 2024-2025 main estimates. Labor development and standards is deferred. We'll now move to the next key activity. Moving on to the language and culture on page 58 with information item on page 60 to 63. Is there any questions? Okay, I'm going to go to the member from Range Lake. Oh, sorry, I'll go to the minister.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like the opportunity to trade out my witnesses, please.
Absolutely. Want to take a break now? Yes. Okay, thank you. What I'll do is, because the translators need a break, we'll take a 10-minute break, and I'll go back to the member from Range Lake. 10 minutes, starting now. Thank you. I think we're going to continue on, but before we go, I just want to say thank you to the interpreters. Have a good rest. We'll see you tomorrow. For the rest of you, continue on. Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Range Lake for pages 60 to 63, information item.
Arts funding to ITI, I believe, is the plan to streamline things. All immigration is going to be parked here in ECE, and all arts funding. But these estimates show plenty of arts funding continuing on here. So when is that happening, and how is it happening? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it is absolutely true that members would have heard, as well as the public, that there is an intent to streamline arts funding within ITI and immigration within ECE. It was important to me that that announcement be made as soon as possible so that the work could then follow in a much more transparent and public way around making sure that we were transitioning stuff so that the staff that are involved in those programs so intimately could be involved in that planning process. And so you will definitely still see budgets reflected in their traditional home departments, because that work is still required to be done. And then once we kind of are able to have a plan forward and official dates and what that will look like, then we will go forward with tidying everything up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
So to be clear, is there an implementation plan, or is this just new policy direction? Thank you.
I'll go back to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as far as the implementation plan of what this will look like and how it will be done is something that is currently in the works within each of the departments. And so it's not something that I was able to, quickly go and do in a rush over the last 6 months in order to make sure that it was separated out before we got to this part in our term together. But I wanted to ensure that this is something that can be done in this fiscal year. So I guess my best response to the member is stay tuned, and I will make sure that I am doing my best to make sure that members are well informed of what is happening and when.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
Thank you. And I don't want to run into hot water with you, Mr. Chair, around what's been discussed with our committee review of this, but suffice to say, the announcement that was made publicly, I think, was the first time everyone became aware of it, and it is a little surprising because typically we don't see that. Typically we see things pretty static and changes come slow, and usually there's either a supplementary estimate that comes up or some other instrument to move things along. So I will say this, I like this. I think it's good initiative on the minister's part. I think this is a sensible thing. I would like to see this reflected in more areas of the budget, or more areas, of the N.W.T, where ministers are making clear decisions around how things ought to work, and once we make that decision, we work out from there. My only lament is that it would be nice to see that in this budget, though, because when you have an announcement on budget day that all this cool stuff's happening, and then you look at the document and it's not in there, then it leads us to ask these kind of questions and try to piece together the plan. So at this point, it's a great idea, and I look forward to seeing the plan. And again, I hope we see more initiatives like this, but it would have been nice to see it reflected in this budget. It also would be nice to see some increases to arts funding as well. We're chronically underfunded in arts, I'd say, compared to some other jurisdictions, notably Yukon, which has a smaller budget than ours, smaller population, smaller territory size, all those things, but is often our closest comparison as a northern neighbor. And they have done remarkable things with their arts sector by investing a significant amount of resource in it. And and you see the dividends pay off. And it's complemented their tourism product. It's complemented their the cultural richness of Whitehorse and Dawson and the Indigenous communities as well. Like there's lots you can look to, and I'm not gonna look too favorably on them, because I think far too often we gush over the Yukon, and their problems are different than our problems, and we have lots going on here too. But one thing we could be doing more is investing more in the arts, and I hope this shift sees that. I think ITI is perhaps more ambitious about how it chases people to invest, but I don't know, because I haven't dealt with the department directly. So maybe the minister can speak to that, because we've got a lot of people with expertise in this area. So, how are we going to see these limited resources used more effectively by this change in policy direction? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the member's comments for sure. I can reflect on some recent decisions that were made that came out that were not, that were fully baked, we will call them. And so it's definitely one where finding that sweet spot of how people want to see ideas come out of the oven is definitely one that depends who you're chatting with. And so I appreciate the member's support on this, and look forward to being able to update him on what those timelines look like once we've had the opportunity to make sure that we're going about this in the right way to ensure that there is as little disruption to residents of the territory as possible. That's very important for both streams that we are combining together. I know that there's also been a lot of talk about this on the floor of the House, not only in this assembly, but also in previous assemblies as well. And I guess this is one of the nice things is this is one that I asked for last term, and now I get to do it. So here we are. In regards to arts funding, Mr. Chair, we are currently second in Canada, and so while it's not first place, we're a strong second as far as per capita spending in that regard. And so I'm to share the members' excitement about where arts will go within ITI. I think one of the things that's really neat is there's kind of now going to be this suite of funding that kind of leads people through a journey from potentially being an art for art's sake type subscriber to developing it into a starting business and then potentially going from there. There's also that very natural and beautiful connection with art tourism as well, which the member brought up, and which I can also say that in the opportunity I've had to travel to different communities in the South Slave, especially recently, art tourism came up multiple times, and the excitement around the potential of art tourism and the economic driver that was quite exciting and quite nice. And so the ability not only to connect people with resources to build business, but also to connect people with other sources of funding, not only within the N.W.T, but also through those federal and third-party partnerships that I know that ITI definitely is in tune to and very excited to use in order to support the growth of arts in the territory. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Green Slave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
sorry. I'll go back. Sorry, it's Range Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, support to northern performers. I note that this funding, I'm assuming, is sunsetting. I think having a touring grant or something along those lines that lets northern artists reside in the north but gives them support to travel elsewhere is an important aspect of arts funding that is often overlooked. Is that something that we can? I note that the line here says that it's going to be redirected towards new programs that will better support the creative sector. So, is that in line? Are we going to find a way to support touring artists? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we're just looking for it because it didn't disappear. It was simply reprofiled under the art strategy funding. And so it is still in here. We're just determining for the member where specifically it did move to, but I can confirm for the member that it's not sunset. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Range Lake.
Okay, finally, an area that we really, everyone needs to get better at, especially in the north, is creative industry around digital property and trademarking and copywriting and all this kind of stuff. If we can get our artists to preserve their IP and then get it into international supply chains that can produce stuff elsewhere, have global reach, but we got to teach people those skills so they are empowered to take part in the digital economy, especially our Indigenous artisans. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And now I'm going to go to Grace Lake, the member from Grace Lake.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and sorry to the member from Range Lake. Didn't mean to steal his thunder. Culture and heritage, very near and dear to my heart. It's where I started out as a public servant. Could the minister explain the reduction of about 200,000? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So this line item, or the difference, sorry, in this line item here is a decrease mainly due to reductions of $460,000. And this is partly offset by funding from the Canada Council of the Arts to support artists across the Northwest Territories. And if the member just gives me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. So this reduction here is largely due to a reduction in heritage centers across the territory. And so originally there was a budget there of $500,000 in the previous assembly. That budget line item was moved up to $1 million, but what we found was that heritage centers in the territory were not accessing that line item. And so in recognition of the fact that those dollars were not being used and might be better used in the government elsewhere, that line item was again reduced. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to go to the member from Grace Lake.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for that. I noticed that just skimming quickly through the business plan, and I know the Minister has spoken to the fact that, you don't have to be in the business plan to be doing important work, and I think the Minister of Finance has already reiterated that to me as well. But heritage resources being included in emergency planning is one of the pieces under ECE. Can the Minister elaborate on that?
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, under the Climate Change Action Plan, one of the deliverables that ECE has is to ensure that as the North changes due to climate change, whether that's coastal erosion or the melting of permafrost, that we are doing our part to ensure that we're preserving the artifacts that come out of that. It's important for me to note that these Heritage Center funding were specific to infrastructure development dollars. They weren't for O&M or other types of project funding. They were specific to renovations on existing infrastructure buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Grace Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for that. I guess I'll talk to her when we get to Capital. Shifting gears, looking at what we have been discussing yesterday, a little bit about the ADM position. I don't really want to revisit that discussion per se. I do kind of want to just talk in general about the secretariats, both of them. They are both, well, I mean, the French language secretariat is seeing a slight increase, but is down since 2022-23. And the Indigenous language secretariat is also down, not insignificantly. Insofar as that dollar amount is lower and we're looking at possibly creating a new ADM, Can the minister speak a little bit to what her vision is of an organization that seeks to possibly restructure what these language secretariats look like under an ADM? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, what I can say is that I would like to ensure that we have a department that is doing its part to support the revitalization of Indigenous languages across the territory. I think that there is work to be done both external and internal to the government, and part of that is the Indigenous recruitment and retention framework that is put in play by the Minister of Finance as well, and services to the public that is coming out of the N.W.T. There's also work that is being done right now in regards to, that I've spoken to already today, like the MAP program that functions from the department. There's also immersion education in some of our schools, and the desire to see immersion education grow and be offered in more schools across the territory. I know that when we traveled on the Education Act in the 19th Assembly, that was a huge focus and desire for communities right across the territory, as well as Indigenous governments, that that in our JK-12 system we're seeing support of immersion education. In addition to that, we also spoke today about the diploma program through Aurora College, and it is not lost on me that the incoming president of Aurora College used to also work within the Indigenous Languages Secretariat for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment. So I'm very excited to see what direction the college takes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to the member from Grace Leaf.
Thanks, and I guess I wasn't really clear. So I'm thinking more along, not necessarily along the programs and services of Indigenous and French languages supported by AC, but rather what does that support system look like going into the future with these two secretariats and possibly a new ADM. I know the new president of Aurora College was the ED, I believe, of the Indigenous Language Secretariat. I'm not sure if EC has found a replacement for that position, if that is being contemplated, or if we're going along with the Secretariat structure. Just wanted some more clarity around that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my role would be to provide political direction. So for the operational detail, I'd like to pass to the Deputy Minister.
Thank you. I'll go to the Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that what the department envisions is an ability to really elevate the prominence and focus of all the official languages of the Northwest Territories. And you know, right now those culture and language reports through an assistant deputy minister, also responsible for K-12 education, which, as everyone knows, is by far the largest activity of the department, and it doesn't, frankly, get the time and attention that it deserves. So by having a separate ADM reporting through and having the management of both of those areas, it will help in terms of addressing bottlenecks and approvals, the ability to attend FPTs, a host of areas, and it'll also provide a career path for someone who I think our vision would be, ideally, the ideal candidate would be someone who speaks an Indigenous language. So it plays a host of roles. It's important. We've given it a lot of thought, and it's something that we believe is needed to give all of the official languages the time and attention that they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go back to the member from Grace Leaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be even more clear. Do you anticipate that the secretariats will remain as they are under a theoretical ADM, or do you want them to be divisions? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister or to the deputy minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. for the time being, they will remain secretariats, but there could be change over time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Graceleaf.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next on my list I have is the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just following up on a previous set of questions. So I'm looking at kind of the arts as a whole on these pages, and note that we've got 1,271 or 1.271 million in cuts. We got 1.271 million in adds. So it's nothing's technically being cut, it seems, but there's a whole redistribution, reorganizing. Program funding, I quote from this page here, is redirected towards a set of new programs that better supports the creative sector. So can we just get a description as to how we are better supporting the creative sector? Has the creative sector been consulted on this? Do they agree that we are better supporting them? That's my first question.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, before I was even elected in the 19th Assembly, I had the opportunity to sit in on some of the engagements that were done for the N.W.T. Arts Strategy. It was pretty nostalgic because I can remember sitting in on them in the 80s with my mother. And so yes, the changes were informed by the sector. There was extensive engagement done prior to the 19th Assembly. During the 19th Assembly, then Minister Simpson had the opportunity to release an art strategy in conjunction with ITI and Minister Wozniak at that time. And so these changes were driven by that engagement, and one of the things that I can note when the changes were made was that I did hear from artists across the sector who found that the programs were more responsive to what they needed. So I hope to continue to hear from artists about funding from the N.W.T. and continue to hear from them as we work towards transitioning arts funding over to ITI as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the one that kind of caught my eye here was that, you know, the arts organization operating funding. I know that operating funding, funding for just kind of keeping the lights on, keeping the doors open is what NGOs and arts organizations alike continue to tell us they need. And so it looks to me like operating funding for arts organizations has been reduced a bit. It was previously 470,000. It seems to be reinstated as 321,000. Can the minister just explain, are there any organizations who are losing operating funding through this change? Are there any organizations whose operating funding is being reduced? Or are we potentially even increasing operating funding to some of these orgs? If the minister could please explain a bit further on that.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, when I went through these numbers, because I did have similar questions to that, the funding that I did note went from about 1.17 within all of those pots that it has now been distributed to about 1.426. So it did have a slight increase in the funding within those arts programs from one year to the next. And yeah, I'll leave it there and I'll wait for the next question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Frame Lake.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarity, I believe the minister is saying that some organizations are actually seeing an increase in operating funding as a result of these changes. Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, all of these pots of funding for these grants are application-based, and so it would entirely depend on if there were more people trying to access the same amount of money or less people for any given year. So it would depend on many different factors. The other thing, too, to note, because I know there has been some questions lately about having deadlines for applications, and one of the things that's really important is that you don't see all of the money funneled into one region in the territory, and that there is some equity in how funding is dispersed throughout the territory, and so that's what these deadlines enable us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Continuing on the arts theme, you know, as was raised, the switch to ITI has been announced as part of the budget address, and so I think that there's you know, there's reason for a little bit of concern from the arts community that, you know, the optics of putting the arts under ITI as opposed to you know, a cultural department is that it kind of indicates that what we're moving towards is trying to kind of treat the arts as sort of a monetized or economic development initiative. And I would say that I think that, you know, investments in the arts is a big piece of economic development, but in terms of the amount of money that the arts are able to leverage, there's a lot about the arts that are culturally based, and it's not all about just simply monetizing art. There's money that organizations can leverage from the federal government and private investment that they can leverage through kind of growing organizations, through operating funding, through kind of growing a community around the arts. So I want to emphasize that, and just emphasize to the department that there are aspects to the arts that they can use to leverage more funding and bring more funding into the territory that are not necessarily related directly simply to monetizing their work. And I'm not suggesting that the minister is suggesting that that's what's happening, but it's just the perception that could be had through the switch to ITI. So if the member has any, if the minister has any comments on that kind of perception and how the department is managing that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm very happy to have gotten this question on the floor because I think it's an important conversation. I absolutely do not subscribe to the notion that artists must be starving artists. I never have subscribed to that and believe wholeheartedly that regardless of whether or not it is an elder participating in a cultural day at a school, or it is somebody delivering a community performance, or it is somebody who is, you know, sewing mitts, that all form of arts and crafts and performances and film and writing all have value. Whether or not somebody is actually monetizing them or not, that skill still has value to it. And I think that as artists, we need to ensure that that value is upheld and that respect for the industry is upheld. And so whether or not that is in ECE or ITI, would still have that same mentality that if you are a painter and you are doing something on the side of a building to increase the vibrancy of your community, your work and your skill has value. And so I just want to start off by saying that. The other thing, though, that I think the member is actually after here is reassurance that the MOU with the Canada Council for the Arts will absolutely continue regardless of what department this funding is found in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the short little period of time I have left, I just want to say that, you know, I appreciate the answers from the minister. Does the minister or the department have, or I guess the new department that's taking it on, have any plans, you know, over the next 4 years to increase funding to arts organizations to help them kind of increase that multiplier effect that can come from leveraging funding into the territory, knowing that this is just a piece that I feel helps to contribute to our priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, part of the work under the Canada Council for the Arts grant is to do work through a coordinator whose role is funded through that MOU in order to ensure that we're doing what we can as a territory with the funding that we do have in order to multiply that by accessing additional federal funding as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the member from Frame Lake. Action items on page 60 to 63. Is there any further questions from members? Oh, I got to go to the member from Mackenzie Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've always stated that our Indigenous languages are in great dire need of revitalization. Especially the Gwich'in language, it's dying at a fast rate, and a lot of our elders who don't get to go out as often as they'd like, because, and we're losing a lot of elders too. So the Indigenous language broadcasting I see is cut by 52,000. Can the minister give me some insight on why the cut has been made? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the $52,000 that the member referred to reduced a line item from $150,000 to $98,000, and that is a return of traditionally unsubscribed funding under the Indigenous Languages Broadcasting Grant. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to go to the member from Mackenzie Delta.
Okay. The Indigenous language revitalization, was that sunsetted, or can you bring some clarity to that? Because revitalization is very important in our Indigenous languages, and seeing something, a drastic cut in that measure is needs some clarity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just for clarity, is the member still speaking about the Indigenous Languages Broadcasting Grant of $52,000? I'm just looking for clarity from the member. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the Mackenzie Delta, the member, for clarity.
According to the Indigenous language revitalization, it was revised in 2023 at 200. And main estimates for 24, 25 is it's cut to zero. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll go back to the minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member for that clarification. So that portion there is a portion of the funding for the Indigenous Languages Diploma Program that I spoke of earlier. That was money that was put in our budget so that we would have it for Aurora College when they came forward with their diploma program, but unfortunately that has not happened as of yet. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Mackenzie Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is the money still there? Can it be used in the future when Orta College decides to use it for the language program? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, my commitment to my colleagues was that when Aurora College does come forward with a suitable and ready proposal, that I would then bring that forward to my cabinet colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to the member from Mackenzie Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Must see, I'm going to go to the member from Montfort.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. This Indigenous language revitalizations. So I know that there's a lot of our community members. They go south once a year to University of Alberta, enroll in CELD program for the for the language. So this is part of the project. And then why, I just want to know why there's a cut, or did they, like, she talked quite a few times about the redistribution. So is this program, are we canceling this program, or did it go somewhere? Because I'm sure our Indigenous students are going to be asking about that.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, this line item does not speak to the program that the member is referring to. This line item speaks to the diploma program through Aurora College. So ECE has been funded for that program for multiple years, but unfortunately that program does not exist yet. And so to ensure that we're using the dollars as committed to by the Legislative Assembly, those dollars have been removed until such time that I can come forward to FMB with a proposal from Aurora College in order to accurately request dollars for that program. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the member from Montfrey.
Well, I see here Indigenous scholarship. I guess that must be that's part of the revitalization education program. So I think maybe if the minister can explain a bit about this Indigenous scholarship.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was able to confirm with the Assistant Deputy Minister that the Indigenous languages line item that's found under contributions just a few line items above for $5.36 million is the line item where that funding is found. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Montfrey.
Yes, thank you. Yesterday we heard that most of these money are allocated to Indigenous government. So I just wanted to ask the minister, I know there is a decrease within the Indigenous Language Secretariat, just as my colleague has mentioned. It's 1.4 million that's decrease in that budget. So I just wanted to ask, so of this, how much is allocated to the Indigenous government of this fund?
Thank you. I'll go to the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, ECE receives $5.9 million from the federal government that is immediately distributed to Indigenous governments for the purposes of Indigenous languages. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the member from Montfrey.
Okay, thank you. I know many of these programs that I know that our constituents use these funds for culture and language. So it is important for them. That's how we maintain and try to keep our culture and language, going. Because just like my colleague from Mackenzie Delta said, it does have an impact, now that younger generation are not speaking that language more. So it is important that it would have been nice if there was, if the budget was a little bit more than as it is here, especially for Indigenous language, knowing that there's more Indigenous people in the Northwest Territories. Half of the population, over half of the population is Indigenous. So it's just that in the future, I would like to see more money allocated towards Indigenous language and culture. So it's more of a comment, so thank you.
Thank you. Information item on page 60 to 63. Is there any further questions? No further questions. Please turn to page 59. Education, culture. Did you have your hand up? Okay. Continue on. No further questions. Please turn to page 59. Education, culture, and employment language and culture operation expenditure summary. 2024-2025 main estimates, $17,396,000. Does the committee agree? Thank you. There are additional information on items on page 64 to page 70. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see no further questions. Thank you, members. Please return now to the department summary found on page 29 and revenue summary information on page 31. Are there any questions? See no further questions. Committee, I will now call the department summary education, culture, employment, operation, expenditure, total department 2024-2025 main estimates, $374,989,000. Does committee agree? Thank you. I'm going to go to the member for N.W.T.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that this committee defer further consideration of the main estimates for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The motion is in order. To the motion. To the motion. Question. Question has been called. All those in favor by show of hands. Thank you. All those opposed? Show of hands. The motion is carried. Consideration of the Department of Education, Culture and Employment Operation Expenditure 2024-2025 main estimates. Total department is deferred. Thank you, Minister, and thank you to the witnesses for your appearing before us. Committee will now move to the next department. Sorry. Would the Sergeant Arms escort the witnesses from the chambers? Committee will now move on to the next department. What is the wish of the committee? A member from N.W.T.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, would the Chair please rise and report progress?
Okay, thank you. Before I rise to give progress, I just want to say thank you to the technical staff that are working right now. Andrew Jossa, and Vince McLeod, and John Gone. Merci for your time. Okay. There's a motion on the floor to report progress. The motion is in order and non-debatable. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried. I will now rise and report progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Member from Trinidad-Welliday.
Mr. Speaker, your committee has been considering table documents 93-20 brackets 1 and would like to report progress with 4 motions carried. And Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the Committee of the Whole be concurred with. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Welliday. Can I have a seconder? Member from Cam Lake. Question.
Question.
Oh, there you go. There you go. All in favor? To the motion.
Question.
Question has been called. All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passed. Notice of, report of Committee of the Whole, report of Committee of the Whole, third reading of bills, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Standing Committee on Government Operations will meet at the rise of the House. Thursday, June 6, 2024, orders of the day, 1:30. Prayer, minister statements, member statements, returns to oral questions, recognition of visitors in the gallery, acknowledgements, oral questions, returns to written questions, replies to the Commissioner's address. Petitions, reports of committees on the review of bills, reports of standing and special committees, tabling of documents, notices of motion, motions, motion 31-20 bracket 1, notices of motion for the first reading of bills, first reading of bills, second reading of bills, consideration in Committee of the Whole of bills and other matters, Bill 2, Committee Report 2-20 bracket 1, Minister Statements 4, 5, 17, and 24-20 bracket 1, Table Document 93-20 bracket 1, Report of Committee of the Whole, third reading of bills, orders of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Colleagues, this House stands adjourned until Thursday, June 6, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. Have a good night.
Order!